Throughout the novel, Don Quixote is indeed madly eccentric, yet simultaneously brave, with a poignant sense of heroism. He continually fights, engages in battles, but only wins twice. But even so, this doesn't destroy his passion and determination. Let's talk about his first victory. Don Quixote said, "Sancho Panza, my brother, this place is teeming with dangers and knights aplenty. But remember, even if you see me in grave danger, you must not draw your sword to protect me. If my opponent is a commoner, you can help. But if it's a knight, according to the rules of chivalry, you must not intervene. You'll need to be knighted yourself if you want to fight alongside me." He was quite rigid about it. Sancho replied, "Sir, I hear you loud and clear, absolutely no mistake. I am by nature a peaceful man, not one for quarrels. Of course, if I need to protect myself, I won't be worrying about those rules, whether they're divine or human. One must be allowed to defend oneself, right?" Just as they were talking, a carriage approached. Inside was a noble lady with several attendants, and accompanying them were 2 monks. Don Quixote, all fired up, said to Sancho, "If I'm not mistaken, we've stumbled upon an extraordinary adventure. Those dark figures up ahead must be sorcerers. There's no doubt sorcerers. They've kidnapped a princess in this carriage, and I must do my utmost to right this wrong." Don Quixote was caught up in his sense of justice, imagining many dramatic scenarios. However, Sancho recognized the monk's attire and guessed the others were just travelers passing through. He advised Don Quixote not to charge ahead, but Don Quixote wouldn't listen. He spurred his horse and charged forward, scaring one of the monks so much that he fell off his mule. Sancho rushed forward and started stripping the monk's clothes off. The monk's mule driver asked, "Why are you stripping his clothes?" Sancho replied, "My master has won a battle, so I'm here to claim the spoils. I have a share in this too." The 2 mule drivers were furious at his nonsense. They rushed up, knocked Sancho down, and beat him, pulling out every hair from his beard and kicking him until he passed out. Meanwhile, what was Don Quixote doing? At this moment, he was talking to the lady in the carriage, spouting the usual stuff, saying, "I am a daring knight-errant named Don Quixote. The beauty I adore is none other than the incomparable Lady Dulcinea. And now that I've routed your robbers, you don't need to reward me. Just go to Toboso and tell Lady Dulcinea about how I saved you," and so on and so forth. After he finished his speech, everyone was confused, completely unsure of what this man was here for. Among the lady's attendants was a foreign Biscayan, who spoke in Biscayan, somewhat incomprehensibly to Don Quixote, saying, "Go, unlucky knight! I swear to God who created me, if you don't let the carriage pass, I'll kill you for real." Don Quixote understood what he said and calmly replied, "You're no knight. If you were, with your confused behavior, I would have punished you long ago. But since you're not a knight, I can't fight you." The Biscayan and Don Quixote were trading insults, escalating their anger. Don Quixote drew his sword and lunged at the Biscayan. The man was riding a hired mule, a cantankerous beast with a bad temper. Seeing Don Quixote charging towards him, he didn't even bother to change a mount. In the heat of the moment, he grabbed a cushion from a nearby carriage and used it as a shield. Don Quixote spurred his horse and charged forward, while the Biscayan also tried to charge back. Unfortunately, the mule he was riding wasn't cut out for this sort of thing. It had already traveled a long way and was utterly exhausted. The mule refused to budge an inch, standing there motionless, watching Don Quixote charge towards him. Both men raised their swords high, aiming to cleave each other in two. The Biscayan struck first with a powerful blow, driven by rage, but his aim was off. The sword slashed across Don Quixote's left shoulder, cutting through half of his armor, along with a chunk of his helmet and half an ear. Had fate not intervened, this might have been the end of our valiant knight's adventurous life. Enraged beyond measure, Don Quixote sat upright in his saddle again, raised both hands high, and brought his sword down towards the Biscayan's head. The man, using the shield, actually a cushion, from the nearby carriage to defend himself, but it was futile. Poor Biscayan's head collapsed under the impact, blood gushing from his nose, mouth, and ears as he fell heavily to the ground. This is one of the rare victories of the valiant Don Quixote, which sounds quite comical. But regardless, Don Quixote thought to himself that he had won after all, enough to boast about for a year or more. From then on, Don Quixote continued his wild escapades. One moment he was charging at flocks of sheep, the next he was releasing prisoners from their captors. Unfortunately, luck wasn't always on his side. 9 times out of 10, he deserved the misfortunes that befell him. Sometimes he accidentally killed someone's sheep and got several teeth knocked out by the angry shepherd. And sometimes he freed the prisoners, only to get a beating from them and have his clothes robbed. Sancho Panza suffered along with him. Eventually, Sancho didn't want to be his squire anymore. He had hoped to become a governor of an island by following Don Quixote, but now he was often getting beaten up, rolled in blankets and tossed up and down for fun, and even had his beloved donkey stolen. When people curiously asked, "What are you two up to?" they would reply, "We're adventurous knights." "What's that?" they'd ask. Sancho would answer on behalf of his master, "You really don't know? Let me tell you. An adventurous knight is someone who gets beaten one day and is made a king the next. Today they're the unluckiest and poorest in the world. Tomorrow they're handing out 2 or 3 crowns to their attendants." This sounds like complaining and teasing, but Don Quixote didn't catch on at all. Not only did he not catch on, but he was delighted by it, believing it to be true because that's how it was written in the book.